Now, previously we saw that Brody was really struggling to walk in a straight line, and horses, the front and back feet should follow through the same sort of line. In other words, they create what we call a two track, and as you can see here, he was very much walking on what we call a three track. So if he was walking through thick sand, you'd see a three-way track. Turning in a tight circle he really struggled with. You can see him flicking his head around, and going backwards you can see he really can't move his back legs properly. Which really does tell me that there's quite a mechanical problem going on, and that yes, we do need to treat him. Here I'm starting over the shoulders, because what I'm really interested in is the resting state of the skin to the fascia which is underlying, and then to the superficial musculature over the shoulder blades. And the shoulders are quite a nice safe area to start when we're examining the horse. And bear in mind, these are flight animals, so what we don't want to do is start off with creating discomfort and pain, because then you're facing an uphill struggle to really assess how the patient is. So here I am, I'm just relaxing him, getting him used to me again. He's only met me once before. And working around the shoulders, and then coming up around the all-important neck and throat structures. Now I will be covering these in a later video, because these structures are so important. But what I'm doing is just moving my hand up under the throat to what's called the hyoid apparatus, where I'm beginning to create some relaxation there, which starts to release tension at the top of the neck, through the tongue and in the mouth, and down into the what we call the cranial, or the upper part of the neck of the horse. And then just some gentle oscillation to those soft tissues, just to initiate further relaxation. And then once I've done that, you see he's already relaxing more. Then I can start to examine behind the withers and through more of the top line. And what I want to do is not just assess the tension from front to back, but as you can see here, also from left to right, because as we saw when he moved, he's not moving evenly through the diagonals. And if you look at the muscling, despite his coloration, you can see that the muscling is not even. And then getting over to the powerhouse of the horse, or what should be the powerhouse, which are the gluteal or bum muscles. And again, quite a bit of tension here. And this is an area with the horse which very often stores a lot of tension, because they very easily either upset this end or the neck, and then as the muscles tighten, the fascia over them tightens. The fascia then gradually becomes dehydrated if it stays tight for any length of time, and then that gets tighter, so then it's harder for the muscles themselves to relax. And so therefore it is essential that we get all of these structures hydrated, functioning properly. And how we get them hydrated is by just releasing some of that tension in them, and then the body will naturally rehydrate them over a period of several hours. He's leaning against me here. You can see my left forearm. He's leaning just sort of around his, just sort of behind his hip joint and pelvis. He's using me as a fulcrum in order to stretch through part of his back. Now as I move the tail, we'll come round and we'll have a look at the hamstring muscles. These are the muscles that flex the upper part of the back leg. And they do that in the horse, they do that in us as well. And you'll see that there is uneven tension in between the left and the right, and the fact that the inner hamstrings just seem slightly tighter than what we call the medial hamstring muscles. And all the time I'm feeling through and examining and treating. So it's a blend. It's a blended way of examining and then treating. So I'm adjusting the amount of tension and the amount of pressure I'm putting through. You can see I'm using part of my fist at one point there on the muscles, and in other areas I'm using my fingers, just the fingertips, but sort of evening out the pressure so that I'm not creating pain for him. Because you will not get relaxation by trying to over-dominate and overpower a horse. And he's quite enjoying this. He's quite relaxed. You can see he doesn't stand totally square. This is another indicator that, you know, he's not okay at the moment. And just working through lots and lots of flat hand contact, making it much more pleasant for him, letting him know where I am all the time, and then just seeing if he'd like to use me in order to stretch away. And the tail on a horse is perfect, but not all of them want to take a stretch. He does, but look at the angle he wants me to be at in relation to himself. So he's pulling and basically stretching and gapping the left side of his body. So he's using me to achieve the stretch he wants, and he was resting that left hind. And if we look from behind, you can see how he's resting that left hind. So the pelvis, you know, he's let his bum drop more on the left, and that's allowing him to stretch right the way through, right the way up into his neck. He's gone nice and still and relaxed. And my job is just to match the pull that he's pulling away from me. So I'm not wrenching on his tail. I'm allowing him to pull away from me, and he's just adjusting that very slightly. It's hard. There's not really any load bearing on that left hind limb at all. The foot is basically just touching the floor, and he's not supporting himself on that limb whatsoever, but he's using the weight of it to actually stretch and help relax and reset the resting state of the musculature, the fascia and everything else, and the joints themselves, around the joints, he's resetting that aspect of things. The camera just spooked him a bit then, but he was just totally going into that, totally zoning out. And often you'll it's not uncommon for them to give a nice big sigh, but you often see either a lack of blinking or sort of accelerated but softer blinking as they're doing this. And so just moving back, you can see he's still not taking any loading through that joint, and there from the side you can see the same. And then gradually he's just going to move, and then he'll eventually take the weight through it again there, and he's standing up. And then he just gently come off, and I'm coming. You'll notice I've still got a little bit of tension on the tail because I don't want to suddenly let go, because that can cause the soft tissues to recoil. It can cause discomfort, and the horse can either kick out or jump and knock the handler over. And this is not about, you know, creating dramatic responses. We want this to be nice and gentle and beneficial. We're not doing these to be sensational. We're doing them to show actually what you can achieve without fighting the horse. And he's gone back into the stretch again, and he's relaxing that leg, and then gently he just then comes off, and you just see his whole body change slightly there. You saw a little shimmer through the withers, because he's altering the resting state of these soft tissues. So there are, as I'm doing all this, there are thousands of messages pinging from the soft tissues to and from the spinal cord, allowing those regions to adjust their tension patterns so that they go back to much more of a normal resting state. And here I am just seeing if he'll rest his head on my shoulder and just take a little bit of a stretch through the top of his neck. And again, he's quite happy to do this. Nice and gentle. There's nothing sudden. I'm not trying to overpower him. I'm not trying to frighten him. You do things to horses that frighten them or hurt them, and they do remember, and it makes it difficult then for everyone involved, whether it be the farrier, the dentist, the vet, or, you know, people like myself, another osteopath or a physio or a chiropractor or equine massage therapist. It makes it much harder for anyone else to work with the horse, because they become distrusting of new people. And the irony is, we don't have to use these techniques. You can get, you know, there's no one size fits all, but they're literally the great thing with the softer techniques is you tend not to get adverse reactions. You tend not to make them lame. You tend not to damage anything or harm anything or leave them with any kind of sort of minor shock to the system. So here I am now I'm just stretching, offering a little bit of stretch through his top line. He's not so keen on that, so that's fine. We don't do it. Simple as that. I let him know that I've listened to him, and then he's fine. He's quite happy. Going back up to check around the hyoid again, and just all the time monitoring what's going on, but not rushing him, going at the pace that he's happy with me, moving around his body, and then just checking all of those soft tissues and how he's already integrating those changes into his body. And he won't be perfect after this. He's obviously done something silly that's really hurt him. So it's not going to just change overnight. But what it will do is it will vastly improve him and allow him to start adapting to those changes. And then just checking that diagonal resting state, so from left fore to right hind and right fore to to left hind. So I can't even say it properly now. And then just chatting through with the owner as to what they need to do. And the horse is quite nice and relaxed. He's not found that at all traumatic. And this is what we want. We want them to look forward to their treatments. It makes life so much easier.